Good evening. This is the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. Today is March 21st, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do we have an approval of tonight's agenda, please?
Make that motion.
Scott Anderson approves.
Motion's made by Mr. Bossy, seconded by Mr. Anderson to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Bossy?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Mr.
Mr.
Franzuto.
Franzuto.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of minutes, draft minutes of March 7th, 2023. Anybody have any additions, deletions, or revisions? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve them.
Motion approved.
I'll second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Bossy to approve the draft minutes of March 7th. Thank you, Mr. Brace. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Mr. Brace. Aye. Mr. Franzuto.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Under Chairman's report, open meeting law, webinars, Mr. Brace, would you like to?
No, I think you sent that around to all you guys.
Yes, we did.
I think from reading it, it looked like it was optional, but I think we all should,
Those are always good things to learn.
yeah,
Did you have to do, you should have done that last year. They probably,
they sent
Yeah,
it
I
out
did.
every year.
oh, you should do it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's at least, you should do at least once.
It's almost like ethics type
Yeah,
stuff, so.
right.
Just gives you, yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Comments from the board? Also, under Chairman's report, I will announce I reached out to Mr. Payer. And he informed me he intends to resign. I was sorry to hear this. I did my best to encourage him to attend and participate. It seems as though his ideas are moving in another direction. I brought up some scenarios as most recent, the green crabs and mentioned Joe LaPuma again and how he was working with researching the benefits of kelp, hoping to encourage him to pick up a pet project of sorts or simply just continue to come here. I explained we need a 7-person board to operate and function properly. And it seems as though he intends to resign still. And I asked him if that is his final decision to please do so as soon as possible, because we have a voting cycle or election cycle coming up, and I'm not sure if that space will be able to be filled. Do you know the timing on?
Well, tomorrow's the deadline for
Okay.
turning in papers. I turned in my papers today. Dave Franzuto, I checked, has already turned in his papers. And Gail at the town clerk's office said that there was another person who pulled papers. A guy named Tyler Schultz, who is the son of the guy who owns Nantucket Health Club, Dave Schultz.
Wow.
So as of 2:40 this afternoon, he hadn't returned papers yet. But if he does, then we'll keep our 7 members. And if not, then we go through the appointment process, get the select board to appoint somebody, or we as a board identify someone who we want to be on the board and have them do a write-in campaign. So,
But there's a procedure as far as Mr. I need to resign if that is his decision. We went through this with a previous board member that was not attending meetings and was unable to resign, and there was nothing we could do about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Graves.
who was that?
Mr. Kuntz.
Okay.
I remember we could not fill that seat until he formally resigned.
Okay. I'll ask Erica how we do this. But I thought he formally resigned. I thought there was like he had something, he signed
Took
something.
some time.
Right.
He did, yes.
He was otherwise described off island.
Yes.
right, so, did you get a
Mr.
sense?
Chairman?
Mr. Franzuto.
Yeah, when I uh, asked the selectmen to allow me to fill Bill Blount's seat, I just wrote them a letter after Bill wrote them a resignation letter. This young man could write a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying that he didn't realize the seat was going to be vacant and ask the board to appoint him.
I guess the first order of business is resignation, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, we went through that with Mr. Blount as well.
Okay.
And did you get a sense from Mr. Payer that he was gonna willingly resign?
I did, but whether he takes action,
First taste.
yeah, so I suggested he go to the town clerk's office and they will guide him in the right direction and have a letter prepared to, certainly it can be accepted at the town building, whether it's Erica's office or town clerk or whomever. But the letter needs to be received before anybody can move forward filling the seat.
So if he resigns before the election, then I guess the question is,
That's a good question.
Can-
I don't know if that's,
he resigns? I guess the question is, if he resigns, then can the election just stand and the new guy, if he turns his papers in, or does he need to be appointed? I mean, I would think that it could stand, but I don't know.
Well,
that's a fair question.
the ballot will be designed for 2 seats.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
But yeah,
let's just let administration be able to figure this out for us and who's willing to reach out to help expedite this. Shall I get in touch with, you'll email Erica?
yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brace.
Good point about the ballot, but I wonder if he resigns before they create the ballot.
Then they could.
You have to wait,
Precedent for changing the date to file your papers down.
but it's also another problem because he's got an extended term. There's gonna be a policy for this because
Yeah.
the select board may have to appoint. Now, they may be happy to appoint somebody who comes in third. They may be happy to appoint somebody that we suggest or that requests it, but I wouldn't be surprised if because it's still got a term to go, 2 years to go, that the select board will fall to them, but that's what we'll have to find out. It's administrative, as you said.
And procedural.
Yeah, there'll be a
and all that
procedure.
good
There'll be
stuff,
something in
yeah.
place.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, Marine Department report. Any representation?
No,
Natural resources.
and Tara texted me this afternoon and said that she's super busy with work and with interviewing interns and family, and she just couldn't make it. So I told her we give her a pass because she puts out the bill.
We've done so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in doing the minutes for this meeting, for the last meeting,
Yeah.
there was a lot.
There's a lot of
She had a lot of
information in there.
stuff to say,
Right.
and,
Right.
it was at least half a meeting.
Yes,
The only thing I can say about scalloping is that there was one boat once in the past 2 weeks.
In Vatican.
Immaculate.
There were 5 boats yesterday in the harbor. I was impressed.
And the way over here, Nantucket Shellfish or seafood was unloading their truck where they dispose of the shells. So there's quite a few shells coming out of that truck.
Well, I was fortunate enough to get my hands on some scallops a few days ago, and they were just as delicious as the beginning of the season. Very healthy. A few scallopers that are going mentioned, they're scarcer, but still there and looking very good. So
Yeah, when I got those scalps from Carl, actually Bruce Cowan, God, I couldn't believe how fat they
Yeah, yeah.
were. Fat, beautiful scalp. I'm like, it takes a half a strip of bacon to wrap around it.
All right, discussion on natural resources or marine department,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Franzuto.
Yeah, I just want to, again, express my disappointment in the lack of participation from the harbor master.
Thank you, Mr. Franzuto. If I will reach out
It really has to come from the top.
and, well,
I mean, I think.
we do like a report, correct?
What?
Your
We do like a
report,
something.
report.
anything,
and-
Some
yeah.
type
and-
of feedback.
Start with a written report and see if it
All
at
right.
least gets us something.
Well,
You said-
I wasn't going to comment, but I'll comment. It goes back to what Peter just said. It had a page and a half typewritten of Tara's information. And there are things going on in the harbor that we should be at least apprised of. Whether we can help or hinder or whatever, we should be apprised of what's going on. And a written report would be a start, but and as Peter alluded to, it needs to come from the top, and at the top of her department hierarchy. So I'm going to continue to express my disappointment, and that's all we can do right now. But us asking her to come is not going to remedy the situation.
I would think, Dave, through you, Mr. Chairman, I would think with Chief Pittman retiring in November, he's got nothing to lose to, he's not going to be in charge anymore. Beyond that point, I would think that it would be, I don't know. I'm sure that, I guess I really don't know, but I would sure that it might be easier for him to tell her what to do if he was leaving. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but there was a time when we had a similar situation, and she was told either by Chief Pittman or by Libby, if you can't make a meeting, please do a report, and she committed to it, and so she hasn't done it. And I kind of, I'm sorry.
No, any input would be greatly appreciated.
But kind of, I know we've talked about this so many times, and we're in a public setting, so anybody can be watching this. And that means Sheila can be watching this. And if she is, I'm hoping that she's taking it with a grain of salt and realizing that we want her here. We're not trying to badmouth her, but we're the harbor in Shellfish Advisory Board. We need to know what's going on.
And that harbor's gonna be full in another 2 months.
Right, and then she's gonna be too busy to talk to us again, so. And she always updates us on the lifeguards, and it's not really our area anyway, so she can take care of that and get that out of there and just tell us, hey, what's happening at the boat basin? How's it going at the town pier? Have there been any issues with liveaboards? All the stuff that we covered.
All right. Thank you. Public comment. Old business, harbor watershed insert. Mr. Bossy, I would like to thank you for your efforts. I have not been able to participate. I was a little under the weather for the past 9 days, and you picked up the ball, and you've done some things, and I know you were out of town, so thank you. Where are we with this?
I trust everyone got the email, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Dave's got I think the administrative end pretty well handled. for the mailing itself. We've got the buck slip. I think it's good. We need to pick a date and a time, but I think we have to get the okay from the town to hold it at fairgrounds or to hold it wherever, to hold the session, and a date from them that we can do it, like a Saturday or whatever in June, or if we're talking August, then in September.
So my take on this email that was sent out was that the town attorney still needs to kind of like bless it.
Yeah, but it says a lot that Libby took the time to review it and check into it and said she'd get back to us. If, you know, if they didn't want to do it, she wouldn't have wasted her time. She would have just said
No.
right away, this is why you can't do it.
Right.
And I think that it's us, we're doing work for them that they don't have to do if people show up. And I had a thought, I had two thoughts. One thought was, we could invite the land council to come and be a part of it, and they could help answer questions. They might be able to answer some of the more technical questions about what's going into the harbor, and they could help us. And then I had another thought, and the other thought was, because the Inquirer Mirror doesn't come to our meetings because they are covering school committee. You know, maybe we could once a month send them notes on what we talked about that month. I mean, maybe we could send, not them, we could send the Nantucket Current notes. And I already spoke to their main person there, their reporter, and he said, yeah, sure, we'll do it. So just, that could be another way of getting the information out. So.
Good, thank you, Mr. Brace. And Mr. Bossy.
But I had one more thing, and the other was, once we get people there, we're gonna need to be able to show them. Are we gonna have an outfall pipe to connect to their property to show them that?
I'm kind of feeling that we know the pipes are there.
Yeah.
Do they need to have their particular outfall pipe identified? I'd like to think more like you're identified as your runoff ends up in the harbor through one of these outfall pipes. I don't know if we have to be so specific as to which they are. It would be nice to see them identified at least.
Right.
This is where they all are. And just so it can be more of an alarming effect, hopefully, to the people we're trying to reach out to. That there is this amount of runoff going directly to the harbor untreated, and so connecting each neighborhood to each pipe, that might be a little.
All right, then how about we find a way to show them, you know, the water, the specific watershed they're in, like, you know, Daisy was talking about the infiltrators that are up at right near the high school, and the one on the Silver Street parking lot, and those all go down to Consu Springs, which then empties into the harbor through the underneath the rail bed. So we, maybe with the help of the sewer department, or
Let me interrupt you, Peter. Mr. Franzuto said he's lost his connection and he needs to be let back in.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
you good, Dave?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost my internet for a second there. It dropped out.
Because I guess what I'm saying is
Thanks for letting me back in.
the buck slip, whatever we put in there that has the map that shows the harbor. I mean, it doesn't take much brains to look at that and go, yeah, I live right there,
For that little section.
for that little section. So, you know, you might have people saying, why do I need to go to this thing? we gotta give them a reason to go. We gotta say, this is your little area that contributes to this, the harbor. Like like people who live around Lily Pond, it drains down, it comes out at Children's Beach. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be pinpointed, but there should be like, oh crap, I need to go because,
Yeah, if it doesn't exist, I'm happy to reach out to the sewer department and try to put together a map and identify this
Mhm.
stuff as best as possible.
Mhm. Okay,
Because we could do a larger map of the island and
Yeah.
put outflow pipes on.
Yep.
Ideally, they'd end up on the GIS map, the map GIS map with all the overlays.
and I'm certainly interested in seeing it. I mean, it's such a large number, it's hard for me to believe, really, but and Mr. Franzuto has mentioned it a dozen times that it's around that number,
Mhm.
52
Yeah.
outfall pipes, and I mean, the larger ones, you see pretty, in plain sight at Francis Street and close to the town pier, Washington Street, and Children's Beach and the yacht club area, Easy Street, in the marina itself. There are several, I'm sure, and but it's still hard for the imagination to pick up 52 of them. So
I guess all I'm saying, Andy, is that, it's like, well, why are we inviting them to come? Are we inviting them to come because we're gonna show them how to use the GIS system? That's one thing. But then to give them another thing is, you're in this area, and you should know that, or you're outside of the area, don't worry about it.
Well, no, you're outside the area, worry about Mattocket Harbor, worry about Hummock Pond.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
There's
that
plenty
would
to
be
worry
part of
about.
it. Yeah,
well, and what they're using in the yard,
Yeah,
Yeah,
whether
Right, and then
whether
talk
it's
about, right.
fertilizer or
Right.
whether they're changing their own oil and
Yep.
or whatever it may be. The chemicals you're using to clean your aluminum wheels, some of these chemicals to me, it seem like they're awfully powerful, and today's mindset is to gray and white, no elbow grease, and to accomplish that. And aluminum wheels, I've tried them and decided, I'm gonna use a fine sandpaper because 3 different chemicals don't do anything for it, it seems, and I just wonder how many people go through that. Certainly, there are products all around the house that I think we should be prepared in having a list of.
Yeah.
That if you're using these products around your house, Roundup, and it's not applied properly, or if it's applied right before a rainstorm, probably quickly ending up in the harbor. Even I believe mulch should even be on the list, because so much mulch is floating away. But it would be nice to know, okay, what is the negative effects of mulch? Well, first of all, there are lots of fines in it, so we're adding silt. Is there a high concentrate of nitrogen in mulch? It would be good to know, because it's a very popular item. Toscana brings it over by the
I
barge.
saw barge being loaded the other
4
day.
barge loads of mulch last summer.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Franzuto.
are we talking about whether we're going to do the buck slip or a
I-
full page, or what are we, I missed that part because I was trying to get back on the internet.
All right, well, what gets on the buck slip is one thing, but I was just more referring to our seminar, or whatever we're gonna call it, and things we need to be prepared to speak to the community about.
Well, I think we could request that, Carlson or a representative from his shop would be there. The email from Libby was encouraging. The fact that, she had talked about public outreach and that they could post it on social media and that sort of thing. So I think we're headed in the right direction. But I mean, we could have Carlson there to talk about the fertilizer. We could have Santa Maria there, to talk about the health issues. I mean, we can pack the room and then do the tutorial for driving the GIS maps. It was also encouraging to see that she was willing to put to reach out to Porter to put the 52 discharges on the map.
Yeah.
And, so that I think we're headed in the right direction anyways, where I'm going.
And also, Dave, it was very encouraging that one thing that said that they want to see it happen, see us do it is, get a hold of the civic league.
Right. I was very surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised that, she raised a question that, she's going to check with town council that as to what they can and cannot mail out. I don't think this is in any way, shape or form, something that they couldn't or shouldn't mail out.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that we get a favorable recommendation from him and we just move forward. And then I think while we're talking about it, I think we'd be well posed for that July tax bill.
Is it July or August?
No, the email that I was just reading from the refreshing my memory from the last email that I got from the tax people was that it'll be approved by the selectmen before it gets mailed. Given this and the timing for when the printer needs to file, it wouldn't be enough time for the insert for April, but if it is approved by the select board, which we're headed in that direction, we'll be able to insert it in the Q1 July tax bill at
Okay.
10 cents per insert, which Carlson has agreed to pay for. So I think we're moving ahead here.
Thank you, Mr. Franzuto. Mr. Anderson.
I was down at town clerk the other day and picked this up. This is a nice little thing. It was sitting right next to the clerk's station, and it talks all about the septic systems and sandy soil and leaching and all the other things. So we can probably also make sure that we have a few of these so everyone can get one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's already exists, so why recreate the wheel on some of it?
And we
Yeah,
get copies.
get any type of handout that is already available to have them there at a table.
We can have, get all the blue pages at my house, Dave, so we can give those away.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, no, I mean, you laugh, but it's good stuff. It's reference material. And if 10 people pick it up, then 100 people will hear about it.
Well, and think about, since the blue pages came out, how many houses in this district we've created have changed hands? How many new faces are
Right.
here? I think there's somewhat of a revolving door there. If you watch the property transfers, there's a lot of people coming and going. So we're waiting on
We're waiting on town council.
okay.
So I should email.
Could I ask another question?
Please do.
Did Dave Bossy, did you see the edits that Libby made?
No, I did not.
The little notes with arrows,
It was on the.
like 3 or 4 of them.
If you scroll down further on the email, you'll see where she kind of redlined a few things.
On
I worked
Peter's-
for her for 30 years. She always worked my stuff out.
No, what email was it though?
Wait, hold on.
I'll
Dave, what
forward
did
it.
you say?
I'll forward it to you, Dave.
Okay, thanks. I'll take a look.
It's out there in the
Okay.
group of stuff that Peter gave.
Oh, okay. And we may want to add some things to it if we're talking about, but that's something to decide. It may just be we want to distribute to a wider audience, like Civic League and those things, and just basically say, we may put a little cast of characters that we might want to have. Make it a little more general than what it is. Right now, it's pretty focused on just looking at the
No,
maps.
I think if Civic League would pick up an end of this and if not moderate, at least kind of headline what we're doing like they
Right,
do
yeah.
with, meet the candidates and
Right.
meet the articles and meet the harbor.
Yep,
So,
yeah.
So we need
I
to, we need,
mean, the comment that she made here is very supportive. It says, if it's to proceed, please ensure that the Nantucket Civic League is provided with all the information so they can help push it out to their member associations. So then you get these
Yeah.
neighborhood associations,
Mhm.
which is what we had talked about, which is exactly what we wanted.
mhm,
I,
mhm. Okay,
so we need a date. We need to pick a date so that we can have that to work toward. And that might, if we had a date that we decided today, then that would maybe add a little bit of urgency when I email Libby or Erica to say, when will when will you know from town council, we want to do it on this date?
I thought there was some notes in there as well about somebody's going to be looking up what dates are available.
Okay,
Right, they have to
at
tell us what's available, I think,
Okay.
at fairgrounds.
But
But-
it can't
but-
hurt to grease the squeaky wheel and Colin, hey, we're looking forward to hearing when what the available dates are so that we can make a
Right.
decision.
to that point, she also makes the point that Saturdays are usually available because
That's right.
most boards and commissions, they don't meet on Saturday. So I think that, yes, I think we need to pick a Saturday. It looks like we're now looking at August. Or yeah, probably August or late July.
so we're not looking at June anymore, May or June.
We'll
No,
make
because,
it-
no, because we're gonna hit the July 1 tax bill. So now you're looking at, they get the tax bills that first week. So you're looking at maybe the 22nd or 29th of July or the 5th of August are some Saturdays.
I thought it was. That was August 1.
I believe that's the due
Due.
date for the tax bill.
It's the due, okay, but it goes out,
Goes out in July, a couple
July.
weeks, 2 weeks
We get
before,
30
so,
days.
right.
right?
And then the only question is, do we want to wait until September when more homeowners are here? Just tossing it out. Can't go late in September, it would be
Right.
just after Labor Day.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, to get more, thinking that the rentals are gone. Later August, though, a lot of rental, like kids are going back to
Yeah,
school anyway,
right.
so it's more homeowners on weekends even.
Mhm.
I just think September is the pressure's off of everybody. Mentally, you're feeling like,
Yeah.
like you could, in your mind, you can go, yeah, I can go to that.
I got time, yeah,
Yeah. And then we don't have it too late in the morning,
no,
find a way to get some food there and,
This is also a good question to get an opinion from those at
the community,
Civic
neighborhood civic.
Civically,
Yeah,
they're, because they do this a lot,
Right,
right?
Right.
And so talking to either Peters, the two Peters that are co-presidents of it, Peter
Morrison and Charlie Stott.
Charlie Stott, okay. So,
should we reach out to them and with an email and say, look, we're working on getting this together in September, we appreciate, any input you guys have, and not September, I'm sorry, for late this summer into fall, and we would appreciate your input or just talk to you about it.
Because they do the two breakfasts. They have the president's breakfast, the presidents of the association's breakfast in June, and I think it was always like the second Saturday in June, and then in September, they have another program where members of the Civic League all come to. So if we can get it before that,
Mhm.
obviously after June 15th or whatever, but before that, then that there'll be the maximum number of members on the island.
Correct. Possibly we could ask one or both to zoom in at our next meeting, and we could just a
mhm.
little chat with them and say, here's what we're thinking, what do you think if we were to do this in late August or in early September?
Yeah,
And they would say, well, we've got this, but you know, there's time. That's probably a way to handle it. Is actually talk to them
Yeah,
in one of our meetings.
Well,
Zoom in 2 weeks.
I think that'd be a great way to do it. They're gonna have their calendar in front of them and be able to mix and match and fit us in when it coincides with something that they have, or they know it would be a beneficial time. I mean, I know Charlie Stott from before, when he was doing the Mattakit stuff, but I don't know. Peter, do you have contact information for them?
for both of them, yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I think we ought to invite them to the Zoom into the next meeting, or email us with their comments or preferable suggested dates.
Who should I send the, are you guys
Stop.
asking me to do it, or do you want to do it?
Oh, I think it should come from, the board for us to invite them and ask them if we could just have a few minutes of their time at our next meeting.
Right, but which one of us should do that? You want me to?
You do. I would suggest you be official from our secretary.
Okay, I'll do it.
Sorry to keep dumping on you, but.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna load you guys up someday. Not gonna expect it.
Payback is gonna be terrible.
So we got
Oh.
a two-pronged next step. That's good. Okay.
Do we want to look at September? I don't know when Labor Day is. Is it the 4th?
Well, let's hear from those guys and see,
Oh, okay.
get their input on that. That would be my thought.
Okay.
Are we in agreement that September is what we're looking for then?
well, I think, getting an opinion, from the Civic League, would be good before we, I mean, do you see good attendance at like the State of the Harbor? Normally it's attended pretty well.
Last year was good.
Yeah,
Year before was not good, but last year was well attended.
mm,
And remember, everybody was like, they wanted more out of. They wanted more out of the speakers.
mhm.
So maybe,
And I'm thinking, as Mr. Bossy mentioned, the college student exodus begins the second week of August, and that just after that, those last 2 weeks of August may be a time when homeowners are enjoying their property here a portion of the summer. So,
maybe, Mr. Chairman, we produce. And Dave already said that he was gonna pay for the whole thing, so you could dip back into his huge kitty. And produce some sort of one-page document. A flyer for the Harbor Forum. To get people, to tell people we're doing this. And you wouldn't have to print that many, 100 people
for
show
the
up
State of the Harbor.
for the State of the Harbor, and just have it as a handout. And that'd be another way to get out the
Well,
information.
you can bet that I'll get Carlson to do that. Number
Okay.
one. And number two, I need to nail down this date for the
Right.
printer for the tax. I really need to nail that date down with her, and
Yes.
I will go down there if that's necessary. But I need to nail that date down so we can say, so we know that what we're gonna insert in there is, in a timely manner, and we don't miss some deadline. And but yeah, you're right. If we had a flyer for the Harbor Forum,
Right,
That'd be
you
good.
wouldn't need many, a color flyer with our buck slip blown up with some more information on it. Yeah, that's a great idea.
anyway, sounds like the town is gonna help us get the word out. We get the flyer, we tell the Nantucket Current.
In the Civic League to to put it on every one
Right.
of their agendas.
Or we just create a press release and send it to all the media outlets, and they can do what they want with it.
There you go.
So
I think we're
once we,
on the right path.
once we get it all figured out, and this is the date and all that, so.
I'm gonna imagine Labor Day is Monday, the 4th.
Sounds like it should be, yeah.
All I can say about September is on the 30th, I have to go to a wedding, a family wedding. But I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's too
we'll,
late, that's too late.
we'll have it done by then.
Yep.
Okay,
I think by next meeting, we should be able to hone in, especially if we can get some input. Pick a date.
Sounds great.
Any more discussion?
so the next, one of the next steps is to invite Charlie Stott and Peter Morrison to the April 4th meeting. Tell them what it's all about, this is how we need your help, and then that's gonna help us pick the date.
Yep.
And then email. Polk Town Administration with an email and say, what's up with the, information that you're waiting for, when are we gonna hear, and,
Here's a date, and here's a date we got, at that
Yeah.
time, we should have a date.
and I can tell them, that I've emailed the Civic Association and we're trying to,
Civic Association, and we discussed a date, and this is what we're thinking, this is where we are.
How about the NSA?
We definitely
That's
get
huge.
them involved too, yeah. Once we have a date, then we can go to them and get them, because they'll do a blast too, to their people.
Most definitely.
All right.
Okay,
and I mean. Is when's the Scalpers Ball this year? Because if we have information there,
Usually September.
yeah, it's late,
Yeah,
I think it's
late.
gonna be late,
Yeah,
okay, so never mind.
Yeah. I think with these, I think we got enough.
it's scheduled already, though.
It is.
They have, yeah, Samantha Danette will have that. Information, it's certainly scheduled. And Samantha, of course, has just been tremendous on social media. And, reaching out to people with, I think she's joined quite a few scholars on, full limit trip. And, sharing a lot of pictures and what it's been like out there, and she's very energetic, with getting, appeals accomplished.
You have to say, I spoke with a new scalper this year, Dylan Wallace, a young guy who goes alone, and he said he was only committing to going for 3 weeks. And he ended up going 3.5 months, and he bought a boat and everything for it, and he paid off the boat.
That's good.
Anyway, that's,
Yeah. He got in
His mom and dad
Good
used to scout.
was what?
His mom and dad used to scout. As
Yeah,
a pair.
Peter
Yeah.
Wallace. Yeah.
Yep.
There's that institutional memory again.
Well, it's great to see.
Yes. Any more discussion on the harbor watershed insert? Moving forward, Vineyard Wind, South Coast Wind. I'm just gonna make one announcement, if I didn't make this at the last meeting, that there are some interesting documentaries available on YouTube. The effects of offshore wind farms on marine mammals with Dr. James Miller, the Department Chair of Ocean Engineering at URI. Can also be found under Will Offshore Wind Harm Marine Life. Interesting stuff. I'd just like to throw that out there. If does anybody have anything they'd like to add or discussion on Vineyard Wind or South Coast Wind? Also, in this, you'll find that in Maine, off the coast of Maine, where some wind energy is proposed as well, they are considering floating wind generators. And so far, the design of a floating wind generator is on a platform that floats, and is 300 feet by 300 feet. And has 3 anchors that anchor it to the bottom. They look for shallower areas, which are usually rock outcroppings, to embed the anchors into the chains. The chain links, each link in the chain is the size of a pickup truck. These are very, very large pieces in the installation. And they show it to you in these YouTube documentaries. Green crabs. Anything
Nothing
new?
new on green crabs.
I noticed Toscana is advertising organic compost. For whatever that's worth, I don't think they're adding green crabs to it yet, but let's hope, you know, if they're predators, that we move forward with keeping the predators in check.
I believe compost. I haven't been paying attention enough, but I believe the compost Toscana is advertising is contributed by Sustainable Nantucket's farmers. Isn't that right?
No, it's the other way around, actually. They started using it as part of the deal to test it when they
Okay.
first came out with it. Sustainable farm, they love it. So it's all produced here. So good use.
Leaves and
Leaves and
ground
grass. Leaves and
branches
grass. Yep. Yeah, they're very, very strict about what goes in it, and they filter and they screen it really well before they deliver it.
So you've done a little research on it.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's the farm manager
Oh,
for Sustainable.
Yeah. For sustainable.
Shows how much I was paying attention.
oh, thanks, Mr. Bossy.
Sure.
Any other discussion for green crabs? And shall we keep this on the agenda? Do you expect to have some updates in the
I'm
future?
gonna try to start reaching out to people, see who might be willing to trap them.
No,
I don't mind keeping things on the
Yeah,
agenda.
keep it on the agenda.
So,
Keep me
we
wanting
can
that.
always just pass right by it, but to have the opportunity to speak on it and possibly make any type of a vote, it would have to be on the agenda. To vote on anyway, we can speak on anything under public questions and comments, but. Okay, Harbor Action Plan Committee. SHAB recommendations, when Mr. Brace and I were doing this, putting together this agenda. You know, Mr. Brace expressed his concern that we need to get our recommendations put together. Better sooner than later. I've been a procrastinator myself. There's a couple of things I'd like to work on for recommendations. One of them being related to the next order of business under old business, the sediment transport study and dredge plan. So if individual board members have you know, something in particular that you'd like to see move forward with for recommendations, let's come forward with a rough draft, speak about it at our next meeting, and try to move forward with refining recommendations and getting them submitted.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Franzuto.
Yeah, their next meeting is tomorrow. They moved the meetings to Wednesday. One of the things that I had talked to the board about, what's the word I want? Not formally, but I had talked to some of the members of the board after our a couple of SHAB meetings ago, was harbor operations and management. And I've got some ideas that I want to be bringing forward to this board to be taken to the harbor plan board. So that's one of my focuses is going to be operation and management of the actual harbor itself. So more to follow.
Well, good. Thank you, Mr. Franzuto. So you'll kind of rough draft that and present it to us in the near future.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow Steve Anderson's um,
Scott, you mean?
Scott Anderson's lead on that. I'm trying to read like three things at once here. Scott Anderson's lead on that, but prepare a paper like he did, and that seemed to work pretty well. So
Yes,
follow
I
that
think
lead.
so too, yes. Anybody else? On Harbor Action Plan Committee, should have recommendations?
I think that, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I think we're not necessarily gonna come up with them all at once. I think that
right,
as Dave reports on what's going on at the meetings, then that'll spark ideas unless we have burning issues.
mm,
And yeah,
well, Mr. Brace, I was part of our discussion when making the agenda was it more about moving forward and taking action and or having certain topics on the agenda for such a lengthy period of time and feeling as though we're not getting anywhere with a particular topic. I was just under the impression, and please correct me if
Sure.
I'm wrong, that maybe you wanted to try to clean up our agenda because it
Well,
has
not-
looked the same for quite some time.
not clean up, but I mean, maybe that's the wrong word, but maybe just,
Well, that's my word. You didn't say that.
no, okay, so formulate them into some sort of recommendation, or, between now and the next meeting, I'll write our second quarter report. And I'll look at each one of these and say what we're doing on these, so that at least we're justifying the work, not that we really need to do that, but the reason of the quarter report is to tell the select board that, hey, we're busy, we're active, and this is what's going on, and we're working on these things, and be prepared, we're gonna make recommendations. And maybe some of those things, they'll never be recommendations that'll go anywhere, but at least, they will see that we care about these things and we're working on them, that's all. But I guess my concern was that, people outside this room look at our agendas week after week, maybe in the local media, and they see the same agenda. And they're like, no, it's the same thing, so maybe it's perceived as we're not doing anything because we have the same things on there, that's all. So, South Coast Vineyard Wind, South Coast Wind, that's definitely ongoing. The harbor watershed insert, this is gonna happen and next, so in September sometime, it won't be on the agenda because we did it, so.
Well, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, Mr. Franzuto.
Well, for instance, under the harbor, I mean, I'll use the harbor action plan as an example. You could we could list a couple of things underneath that. Green crabs, harbor management, mooring systems, things that you come up with, the rest of you come up with as something that you want to not be forgotten during the harbor plan discussion and for consideration. The sediment, I guess, saying more of the things that are like the sediment transport and dredge plan is now going to be is now the contract is being reviewed and let so what I'm saying is that we could show on the agenda that these items are currently being addressed. For instance, under the sediment transport study and dredge plan, contractor being selected or something like that. So it would change the agenda wording, if you will, but it would also be more like an update. You see, I don't know if I'm making
No, I
myself
know what
clear.
you're saying. I know what you're saying, Dave. It's sort of a mini matrix on, it's a progress report on each one of our items.
Well, it would just be, for instance, green crabs could now be moved underneath as a bullet point under
Right.
Harbor Action Plan as green crab information sheet, whatever submitted. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but it would
Well,
be
it sounds
saying
to
some of the
me.
same things, but moving, showing that they're moving forward, I guess is where.
Mhm. And it makes each agenda look maybe a little more exciting, so to speak. Is that
Right,
what?
and like Harbor Watershed insert, um, discussion awaiting BOS approval. I'm talking off the top of my head here, but
good ideas.
Thank you, Mr. Franzuto. I mean, for me, I like to keep items on the agenda because I feel like, we haven't brought it to its fruition, and some things are ongoing. We had a lot of high tides this winter, astronomical high tides, wind-driven high tides, and right now, currently, we're having extremely low tides. If anybody's been down the waterfront early in the morning or later in the evening, and is the cycle right now for low tide. I'm noticing sandbars in the horse shed off of Halbert Avenue from Johnson and Johnson's on down to Brant Point. Down in front of at past sale seafood, what they call, I took a picture the other day of the sign that says "Do not block ramp," and it's always kind of bothered me that they label it a ramp there at Washington Street, and I mean it's more of a flat. And it was bare of water for 100 yards last night or yesterday evening. And if anybody, wanted to launch a boat, literally you'd have your vehicle out in the harbor to be able to do so. And we know that's a shallow area, but what I see is a changing bottom, and when we get a tide that's this low, and you see sandbars where you never saw them before, it gets me to thinking, here's the sediment transport study, dredge plan, Harbor Action Plan Committee, and these somehow all need to come together along with navigation, because these shoals that are appearing also in the bends of CO2, and I'm sure in other areas that I do not frequent. I'm not sure what the North Shore of the harbor is like, but if the Western Shore and the Eastern Shore and the Southern Shore of the harbor are all shoaling up, the other portions must be as well. And I was actually on the steamboat recently during this low tide, and the purser was saying they ran aground in the South Slip at the first mean low tide that we had the other day, and they've just done some dredging there. And when the boat turned around about 150, 200 feet in front of the solid fill dock, you could see, as they went from forward into reverse, you could see a big mud plume come up, and indicating that the boat is very close to the bottom out in front there. Now, of course, that's their area to maintain, I imagine, for dredging. I'm not sure, but it seems as though there are a lot of places where the harbor has become shallower, and I'm hoping this sediment transport study and dredge plan is going to a comprehensive look at the entire harbor as I've said, and I guess I need to put this in writing, I'm hoping they will study how dredging granular sand from where eelgrass beds used to be can possibly enhance eelgrass beds themselves by conducting dredging. But along with that, I'm thinking of some of the scallopers this year saying they really can't even get into Horseshed to scallop because it's so shallow in there. And we can all remember Horseshed being a very popular area for scalloping, along with Halbert Avenue area as well. I mean, there's good circulating water going through there, but maybe not at Horseshed now that this, what I call 0.1A has created itself off of CO2. And when you look at it, it's as though our channel and the opening to the harbor is really closing up and getting quite narrow. So I know that's a mouthful but somehow, I feel we need to put in writing to get the point across that there've been a lot of changes at the bottom of the harbor. Mr. Anderson.
That's exactly why we need the harbor master here. So
As far as
she's out there every
navigation
day.
goes,
Yeah.
yes, and I agree. I agree with that 100%. And hopefully, she will be having some input in this and be doing some studying of her own, especially where she has to mark channels every year. The channel up to into Wallwinnet is an amazing zigzag course to get there. And as Mr. Franzuto, I'm sure, can reiterate, it's been a difficult channel to keep open, and dredging maybe doesn't last as long as we'd like it to for that particular channel, but maybe it's time to go a little further than what we've done in the past. It's been a long time since there's been any major dredging in Nantucket Harbor, aside from the Pulpus Harbor channel entrance. You have to look into the history books to see when a dredge was in this harbor.
Well, if Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Fonzuto, and of course, you know better than me when the last time
No,
we
no,
had
no,
any
it's not that.
serious dredging aside from Pulpus Harbor channel.
No, but you in the harbor plan, and I do have it in front of me, but in the harbor plan, there is a history of the dredging. So anybody can take a look at that. But again, in the not to belabor this point, but I mean, I've been contacted in the last, I'd say 3 weeks by numerous people about discussions about moorings, about time sharing of moorings, the use of moorings, alternative moorings, dredging, use of funds appropriately and inappropriately. That's why I said what I said earlier. The operation and management of this harbor, this is one of the premier harbors on the East Coast, and it's now being heralded as one of the most unfriendly harbors in the East Coast. So that's, there's an awful lot going on that we need to be that we could help with. So I'm sorry that I keep bringing it up, but it goes to what Scott just said. Representation needs to be here so we can know what's going on. They have a multi-million-dollar building sitting out by the airport that they built that still is uninhabitable. So, a maintenance facility for the Marine Department. I don't know how many people sitting around the table knew that, but the next time you go down Bunker Road, go out towards Community Sailing and look to your right, There's an absolutely enormous brand new Butler building that was built for a maintenance facility for the Marine Department that is sitting empty, and there is no idea when it's going to be usable. So for a myriad of reasons, permitting, septic systems, electrical, and on and on and on. And those are questions that we're being asked by the public as to what's going on with the operation and management of the harbor, and we can't answer those questions because we don't know, because we don't have someone here to tell us.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace.
so how does the board feel about in our second quarter report, us saying that we continue not to get representation by our harbor master, knowing that, you know, this goes to the select board, it becomes part of the packet and anybody can look at it, and Sheila will most certainly see it. I'm sure wording, you know, is important, but what do we think about that idea?
What one idea on that, Mr. Chairman, if I could, is Peter has a good way with words, and we should herald and thank and be appreciative of the support and information that we get from the Natural Resources Department on all different levels. And we request, again, this information from the harbor master's office.
Okay, Mr. Franzuto, I know you said you were going to repeat it. This is the second time in one meeting, and I am compelled only because I have personally, and you've seen me here at meetings, have leniency and with attendance, and so I feel as though, you know, I'd like to reach out to Sheila and ask her to attend the next meeting that she can attend, hopefully soon, answer some questions. I think she probably knows, you know, by viewing the meeting, what we want to hear. And I don't think it's healthy for us to compare natural resources to Marine Department, but we do have questions that need to be answered, and a report that should be submitted. And let's see what we can bring in the next meeting as far as entering this into the quarterly report. At this point, I would not agree to that. I'm certainly open to more discussion from the rest of the board, but I feel a bit responsible myself for having leniency in the attendance, and actually having a discussion at one point that when we have questions we need answered, please reach out and request for my attendance. She's made it clear she's really not a people person, she's a hands-on person, and meaning, you know, coming to meetings on a bi-weekly basis or every other week basis, bi-monthly, you know, it is not her inclination as it is and was for Mr. Franzuto. So you know, there have been several times when she was intending to come in and was kind enough to text that you know, she had a call in Mattakit at one time, and so still I would like to enter this, you know, beginning by me asking her to come in for the next meeting. So before we really go any further with it. the board feels otherwise, now's your time to state so. Mr. Anderson.
The only other thing I think we could do is pose questions, several questions to her, looking for responses. So rather than waiting for her report, here's what we're looking for feedback
Right.
from.
Well,
It's
and
almost like
she's-
drag her down, drag the
Well,
person
and,
down the road.
that's what she has expressed to me. Send me your questions and I'll make sure they're answered. So, you know, and several were mentioned tonight, town pier, progress at the town pier, and also, in the marina. You know, her input, into, the Harbor Action Plan Committee,
Dredging,
Navigation.
yes.
dredging and navigation, maintenance building, new $3 million office building that's been on the planning books for
Yes, yeah.
since 2017. I got them $1 million grant from the Seaport Advisory Council towards that building. They matched it at town meeting. Now the cost, I believe, is somewhere around 3.2 million. What's the status on that contract? I mean, if Mr. Chairman, if you want to send her a list of bullets and have her respond to each one, I mean, that's better than nothing.
Yes, okay.
And nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Franzino.
All right, I'd like to suggest in the interest of moving on that I agree with this, let's start with the list.
Hmm.
See if we can, if she'll come answer them in person. Or if not, at least provide support answering what's on the list.
And
Let's-
if board
let's move on
members,
from
if you
there.
think of something else you want to know, please text it to me, reach out to me, and I will reach out to Sheila.
Okay,
I'm sorry, but I
Mr.
don't
Rice,
agree.
I
Mr. Chairman.
know you don't, and I know it, I kind of know what you're gonna say.
No, you don't.
All right.
I think that we gotta stop tiptoeing around it. I think that we need her here once a month. You know, when Tara comes to the meetings, we learn things that we wouldn't have learned even if we put them on the agenda. She tells us stuff. She, you know, we have a rapport with her. And I know that Sheila is the way she is, but let's not forget, she was senior chief of the Brant Point Coast Guard Station. She was a people person and ran that station. And she runs a department full of people. So I don't see what the harm is of getting her here for 20, 30 minutes once a month. And why that should be a big deal. We need her. Everything Dave listed off. And we can give her the bullet items and she can blow that off. She can say she can't make it, or
I don't want to project in that direction.
I don't either, but I've been on the board for almost 9 years and I've seen it. So, you know, if she's listening, I hope she comes to a meeting. And okay, so we don't need to put it in the report that everybody reads, but we're effectively the Shellfish Advisory Board without her here.
That's well put. You're right, Mr. Brace.
And I would add that, you know, at one time we were eyed by the select board to become an appointed board. And we fought that off and we're still elected, but you know, if we can't even come up with recommendations that are related to the harbor and we're only doing natural resources, I mean.
Well, I only, I bring it up for several reasons, but one is, like I said a minute ago, a lot of people are approaching me wanting to know answers to things that we're
No,
responsible.
Dave, you're absolutely right. You need to answer to constituents and the answers.
And it goes to the, and it
answers
goes
need
to the
come
point
from
that,
the proper source.
and it goes to the point that Peter made. We're elected. We're elected by these people who, when they're standing in the ballot box, feel that each of us brings a certain qualification and expertise to the table. And they would like the answers. which is the difference to me between an appointed board and an elected.
Thank you, Mr. Franzuto. Any discussion on sediment transport?
Sorry, I listed it twice.
Yes, that's all right. Dredge plan discussion, I think I simply need to do my homework with working on drafting a recommendation. And backing up to Harbor Action Plan Committee recommendations, any board members have anything you want to pet project, you know, so to speak, using that term loosely, you know, please think about bringing it forward at the next meeting. Mr. Franzuto just brought up, you know, alternative moorings, which was something, you know, we discussed a lot in the past with Fritz McClure took that under his wing. And there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, I guess. The acceptance of alternative moorings, how much do they actually save the environment or not, you know, with the circular motion of, you know, whether chain is used or a spring line, and the spring line being weighted down so that it ends up scouring as well, even without chain, because I certainly like the idea of a couple of these alternative moorings, but maybe something new has come up. And it was something I hope that maybe Mr. Payer would be interested in. If anybody's interested in reaching out to Mr. Payer, I'll share his phone number. Otherwise, you know, we talked about him and his position earlier. If he does not stay, you know, we need to move forward, hopefully, in getting his seat filled. Pool water discharge. Hopefully something is going to come out with the health department and natural resources with this. I've kept it on there, just hopefully that if there's new information, we can discuss it. We have nothing under health of the harbors. If there's something, of course, we had harbor watershed was under health of the harbors for quite some time. It's moved up into old business. Certainly everything in old business is pretty much about health of the harbor, except for the wind farms. New business.
Okay, the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee met on March 14th. And, you know, we had a presentation by the finance director, Brian Turbot, that had to do with funding options for coastal resilience projects. And so I'm basically just going to read from my notes that I took for this meeting. He said the options are limited to the options for funding from the town are limited to general revenue, a permanent Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion, general cash, transfer from unused capital projects that have concluded, and then free cash, and then operating budget raise appropriate operating budget borrowing, also a betterment. And he said that they were hard pressed to do all of them, meaning all of the 40 coastal resilience plan projects that are in the plan. He said this year at the annual town meeting, the town put forward another 1 million allocation. The FinCom and the Capital Programs Committee, otherwise known as Capcom, have supported it for sediment transport study and dredging plan, shoring up Nelly's Bridge, as well as the raising of, I think, Pulpus Road, between Fulford Marsh and then work done at the vulnerable spot on Pulpus Road as it goes by Sackatchew Pond. And I believe, I'm not entirely sure, the creation of actual bridges at First and Second Bridge and the raising of the road. And the way he characterized those as, going for the low hanging fruit. And then I believe Vincent Murphy, our outgoing Coastal Resilience coordinator, reiterated that projects like these are important because we can do them now and then people get the sense, hey, we're doing something with the plan and there's a sense of urgency and how important it is. The public sees that. But then he qualified it and said, Brian Turbot said, but the $5 to $10 million projects will take some creative work and grants to fund. He said the town needs to get it into its own capital plan, which would help display it publicly so people support it more. I think he was also just explaining boilerplate funding of projects and programs here, saying funding needs to be in place to fund the project. They borrow the money first to have the cash flow to start the project, and then when the grant comes through, they use that to pay the loan down. Then you got in the discussion of betterments, and Mary Longacre, our chairwoman, she said, no way can we do these without betterments. But they're not popular with the public because the public thinks that the town has tons of money to pay for everything. And we need to look at this from a neighborhood to neighborhood perspective. Mary also said people have different perceptions on how they're actually benefiting from the project. And that translates into whether they agree with the betterment or not. And then Brian Turbot said, once we've got more than 50% of the frontages to be assessed, meaning 50% of the properties within the betterment area in agreement that this is a good thing, we can move forward. He said this is the minimum threshold to reach before going to the select board.
If I may interrupt, Mr.
Sure.
Davies. Can I ask on the screen, is that little head and shoulders in front of the Google Chrome thing? What's telling us if somebody's trying to join? I just got a text from Ginger. She said she was trying to join the.
Well,
On the upper right, there's would show Dave when he tried to join.
she tried, let's see.
She said she's figured the meeting's almost over, so she's.
Well, here are the participants. Let's see.
Maybe
That's everybody, but then it would,
The text came through late. She sent it out at 10:06.
it would come,
So,
it would come,
she could have been on there. And she dropped off.
yeah,
so it would be it would pop up on the screen in front of me and saying,
all right,
is trying to join, and then I would go over there and let her in, so,
all right.
yeah.
Well, forgive us, Ginger, if you were there and we didn't notice. I just told her if she had a statement she wanted to make, she could try to request to join in once more.
Matt Fee suggested that being upfront with all of it and then giving a deadline to decide if the people are in. Brian Turbot, betterments are a long way off. For funding source, the town would need a policy for them. He said it's going to be a very large collaborative effort to fund and do all the projects in the coastal resilience plan. And then Matt suggested transfer of development rights would be another way of doing projects that we wanted to do. And a transfer of development rights are when you when a person who owns property along a coastal area or in any area, and the town wants to do something or an entity wants to do something, you buy those development rights from that person. They're essentially getting that development value of their property, and they can take that and use it somewhere else on another lot. So another lot where they're not allowed to increase the density, they might be able to increase the density.
real quickly
then-
on that. That's what, you can do that. We actually do that with chapter 91 licenses. Where if you can't do the requirement for public access or whatever that's required on a waterfront property, you can they actually transfer those rights over to another property. And in this case, they did it to the land bank and the town. So that's a way of getting money in lieu of, and like Peter said, the development rights. So that is a way of getting projects done.
So
That's been done before, so.
that's pretty much it for the report. And, yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Brace.
and I think. I don't know when the next meeting is.
Comments? Questions on cultural resilience advisory board report from Mr. Brace?
Peter, are there any rough figures on some of these projects at all? Like the bridges and Millie's or first
I can
and
get
second
them for
bridge?
you, or I can put you in touch with Leah Hill, who's the new coastal resilience coordinator.
Okay.
The figures, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good, what'd you say, Andy?
I saw that announcement that she
Yeah.
made a lateral move in the department. Leah Hill.
I'll either get them for you, or I'll get you the person that can
Perfect.
answer that question. Vincent loves to talk about it, so you could probably, plan a whole day to talk to him.
All right, public questions or comments on any subject in tonight's meeting? Anything to recap or any items for next meeting? Our next meeting is in 2 weeks, April 4th. If there's nothing else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second,
Motion's made by Mr. Bossy, seconded by Mr. Anderson to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Bossy,
aye.
Mr. Anderson,
aye.
Mr. Brace,
All right,
Mr. Franzuto,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Good night, you. Thank you.
I guess they turn the heat off in here at night or something.